Today we're going to be reacting to the first impression of Cuba, exploring Havana with the local. Stick around.
I've always pictured myself traveling in Cuba.
Today is our first full day in Cuba. We got in late last night and we stayed with a local family who cooked us a beautiful breakfast this morning.
Okay guys, first of all, the breakfast that you just saw, of course it's not a local breakfast. That's the breakfast that you would get if you would get an Airbnb in Cuba. Actually, when I travel within the island, it's the same. The host, they will prepare some nice breakfast for you, but if you want to know Cuba as a local way, you gotta stay with the local, which the breakfast sometimes is gonna be a glass of milk, bread, and that's it. So.
And today we're seeing Havana in the daylight for the first time, and we are going on a full day tour. So we're starting with the walking tour. We're gonna see the town, then we're gonna get some lunch, and then we're gonna ride in a really cool car.
That's crazy, like 45 minutes to get internet. And then once you buy the card, you have to take it to a park where you can actually access the Wi-Fi.
Okay guys, well this is the CUP, Cuban peso, and this is the CUC. The very easiest way to make a difference between each of these bills is that this one has the face of the hero, Camilo Cienfuegos, the face of Camilo, and here we have the monument of Camilo Cienfuegos. In this case, we have the bill of three CUP.
Okay guys, we don't have the CUC anymore, so forget about this. Right nowadays we're facing like the MLC. The MLC is like the only store where you can buy stuff, and it's in a special card that only Cuba is gonna get access to. And if you're watching this from the United States, you're not gonna be able to buy this stuff because you cannot use credit or debit card from the US. If you're coming from Europe or Canada or all the other countries, and the credit card or the debit card that you have is not from the US, you can use them. But Cuba currency is always a mess. It's always crazy. And in this case, there was something that actually at the beginning of my career in YouTube, I was talking about the CUC as well, but forget about the CUC anymore. We don't have a CUC.
So when I think of clothing in Cuba, I think of white pants, but I never knew why or where that started. And Caesar just told us, So Caesar just told us that it came from a religion. So Cuba was part of Spain for a long time, and they were Catholic. And this is the cathedral square with this beautiful church. And when people from Nigeria immigrated here, they brought this other religion, and it kind of morphed into this Catholic African religion that they call Afro-Cuban.
Oh my gosh, look at that guys. As you can tell, in that square, if you go nowadays, it is gonna have tons of people, but never like that before. In 2018 was the best year of the tourism in Cuba, so this is one of the stuff that you used to see. Tons of people. Actually, Kata said, oh, it's busy because it was pretty hard to walk.
3! So Havana was established in this spot under a saba tree. Now it's a monument, but this is a new baby saba tree, and it is a tradition to walk around it 3 times and make a wish, then put some money down there, and then your wish will come true. And the lady that sits inside this building has tons of stories of people coming back saying their wishes came true. So we're gonna try it.
In Cuba we have so many stuff like that. I love that she did this. It's incredible.
This is a local bakery, and this is the price for bread that you can get. For one piece of bread, you have to pay 5 cents.
Guys, and nowadays it's even harder to find bread. It's even harder to find, I would say impossible to find flour to make the bread. Actually, private businesses in Cuba, they're suffering a lot to this kind of crisis situation that we're having now. So it's really hard. Now when it comes to the local part, the bread in Cuba, we say that it's almost a rock. It's pretty hard, it's pretty bad, but it's the bread that you can get from the government, unless you want to go to the private places and buy it, which is going to be extremely expensive nowadays.
But 5 cents in Cuban peso, so that doesn't exist in dollar. The way we get this bread here is through a notebook that regulates food. One of the few products that still are regulated is bread.
Okay, we just did the math to convert it into dollars, and that means that 1 penny in that store back there will buy you 5 pieces of bread. Crazy.
Another thing that you're going to be impressed by is that in Cuba we have only bread. We don't have different type of breads, unless you go again to the private businesses where some of them they have different type of breads, but never is going to be like you have in your country, whatever is the country that you're watching this from. Cuba is so really complicated when it comes to finding different things. If you go to the market, it's going to be the same. You're going to see a whole place full of water, a whole place full of oil, a whole place full of tomato sauce, but it's now going to be different type of things.
So cool. I can't get over this. Lunchtime!
So now they're going to be getting lunch for what I'm seeing here. I already talked about this in the previous video, so I'm going to jump this part.
Riding around in this 1952 Ford Victoria. You can't come to Cuba and not do this.
Of course, this is one of the typical stuff that you would do in Cuba. If you come to Cuba, you can do this crazy all cars tours that mostly are going to be 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, depending on how many things, how many places you want to visit. But these are not the typical cars, all cars that you will see in Cuba. What we call here in Cuba is almendrones, and almendrones are pretty old cars, not like this, that they look like brand new. Old cars is like a 50 Chevy, but it's going to be pretty bad, and they do take that cab to go from point A to point B, and you only pay like 50 or 100 pesos nowadays with inflation. But back then in 2018 was like 10 pesos, so it was pretty cheap compared to now. And of course, like she said, if you come to Cuba, you have to do this.
Our first stop in the old car was at the Jesus Christ of Havana, and Caesar told us that the local joke was that it looks like in one hand he's holding a cigar and in the other hand he has a mojito. Our next stop is Revolutionary Square, which is a massive square in the middle of the city where after the revolution the government moved to, and here we're surrounded by a lot of very important historical figures in Cuban history, but I think all this would be much better explained by Caesar.
This is one of like 700 no drone signs in this square. They really don't want you to fly it.
You can't. You cannot bring the drone.
You see,
You're welcome.
it was such a good day.
I'm glad that you liked it.
Wow, I cannot believe our first day in Cuba is already over. We have learned so much today.
Like a brain expanding amount to the point where my head is hurting right now. Cuba is a super complicated country.
Okay, Cuba is a super complicated country. That's what most people are gonna say. I cannot say why, guys, because I've been living here my entire life and I don't even know. I mean, the solution for the Cuban problem is to change the way the Cuba works.
I just thought I knew about some of the Cuban history. I knew zero. We are loving Havana.
I love what they said. If you come to Cuba, I highly recommend you guys, I always say the same, to come prepared or to come with someone like Caesar, like us, that can tell you how Cuba works, because you can bring your guide wherever you want, but it's not going to be the same. You're going to be wondering, and you're going to be asking yourself, why? And you're going to be like going to places and you're not going to have any clue about Cuba. You're going to know zero. Woo! I love these people. Thank you guys. Ciao, ciao.